It started with love, or at least that's what she thought. A widow in Wisconsin, lonely after years of silence in her home, met a man online who said he was an engineer working overseas. He sent poems at sunrise, promises at midnight, and photos that looked too perfect to be false. But behind every message was a trap. When the FBI finally traced the web of lies, they uncovered a Nigerian student at the heart of a multi-million-dollar scam. And what happened when agents came knocking at his door was something no one saw coming. Before we dive in, comment below where you're watching from and make sure to subscribe to our channel. Your support keeps us bringing chilling, educational, and true stories of online deception and digital heartbreaks from around the world. Now, sit back, relax, and let's begin the story in full. It was early 2021 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The world was still caught in the aftershock of lockdowns, and loneliness had become its own silent pandemic. In quiet suburbs, widows and retirees spent hours scrolling through dating apps, searching for connection, companionship, hope. Among them was Diane M., a 62-year-old retired nurse. She'd lost her husband 3 years earlier. Her children were grown, her evenings long. When Michael Henderson, a soft-spoken civil engineer stationed on an offshore oil rig, sent her a message, she replied. He called her Angel. He listened. He remembered her late husband's name. And when Diane said she missed hearing someone say good night, Michael texted her every night without fail. But Michael Henderson didn't exist. His photos were stolen from a European businessman's Facebook. His accent, his words, his very identity, scripted and rehearsed by a man 6,000 miles away, coordinating from a dimly lit apartment in Lagos, Nigeria. And at the center of that coordination was Otaniyan Iduozi, a 29-year-old Nigerian who had entered the United States on a student visa years earlier. Otaniyan was quiet, polite, and even charming in person. He attended a community college in Georgia and lived what appeared to be a modest student life. But behind his unassuming smile was a digital empire of deceit. He wasn't the sweet talker wooing victims online. He was the launderer, the man who made dirty money look clean. From his small apartment, he opened dozens of U.S. bank accounts under fake business names. He coached co-conspirators in Nigeria on how to funnel victim payments into those accounts. He withdrew cash, converted funds into cryptocurrency, and sent them overseas, layer after layer, until the trail went cold. For him, it was a business. For his victims, it was heartbreak beyond repair. Diane sold her late husband's truck. Another victim, a 71-year-old from Illinois, remortgaged her home. Each believed they were helping someone they loved. By spring 2022, over $1.2 million had vanished through accounts connected to Iduozi. It was a single email that began to unravel the scheme. An elderly woman from Appleton, Wisconsin, contacted the local police, saying her online boyfriend kept sending her banking instructions through a friend in Georgia. That friend was Otaniyan. The email reached a cyber fraud task force under Homeland Security investigations. They cross-referenced the account number and found it matched another open case from a victim in Ohio, then another in Arizona. Each had wired money to different aliases, but the routing numbers were identical. The web was tightening. Federal agents traced the IP addresses linked to the accounts and found that the devices were active not in Nigeria, but within the United States. One particular login caught their attention: a MacBook Pro connecting regularly from an Atlanta apartment near a community college. The name on the lease? Otaniyan Iduozi. Agents began quiet surveillance. They pulled his class schedule, monitored his bank activity, and placed a tap on the accounts he controlled. Transactions flowed in like clockwork, $9,800 here, $7,200 there, always under the $10,000 threshold that triggers automatic reporting. Classic structuring. But what set Iduozi apart was his caution. He used encrypted messaging apps to communicate with overseas partners. He changed phones frequently. He even transferred funds using peer-to-peer apps under fake names. Still, the investigators were patient. They built their case line by line, dollar by dollar, until the portrait was clear. Iduwozi wasn't a victim of circumstance. He was a willing participant, laundering proceeds of romance scams that preyed on the vulnerable. When agents began interviewing victims, the heartbreak was palpable. One woman said, "I wasn't stupid, I was lonely." Another whispered through tears, "I thought he was the one person who saw me." They had sent money for hospital bills, import taxes, even imaginary plane tickets, anything to help the man they loved. And when the truth surfaced, the emotional toll was worse than the financial one. For investigators, every interview deepened their resolve. These weren't just numbers on a spreadsheet, they were people whose trust had been weaponized. What are your thoughts so far? Would you have spotted the red flags? Drop your opinion in the comment section below. We'd love to hear how you think law enforcement should handle crimes like this. Now, back to the story. By late 2023, Homeland Security had enough to act. Working with the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Eastern District of Wisconsin, they secured a sealed indictment, but they wanted to catch him in the act. An undercover agent posed as a potential accomplice offering to open new bank accounts. They arranged a meeting at a coffee shop in Atlanta. Hidden cameras rolled. Otanian arrived, wearing a gray hoodie and baseball cap, laptop bag slung across his shoulder. He smiled, shook hands, and slid a USB drive across the table. Inside that drive, templates for fake invoices, screenshots of wire confirmations, and instructions for laundering funds through cryptocurrency. That was all the agents needed. As he left the cafe, a convoy of unmarked SUVs closed in. In seconds, he was surrounded. "Federal agents, don't move!" Witnesses recall the look on his face, shock, disbelief, and then a quiet resignation. He didn't resist. He simply whispered, "It's over." The arrest made headlines not just in Wisconsin, but across Nigerian social media. A student turned money mover, caught in a scheme that stretched from dating sites in the U.S. to bank accounts in Lagos. Inside his apartment, agents found burner phones, multiple IDs, and ledgers listing victim initials beside dollar amounts. It was the digital diary of a modern-day con artist. As agents led him out in handcuffs, one of them said quietly, "You could have had a real future." He replied, "I was just helping my people." But helping meant breaking hearts, laundering millions, and leaving lives in ruins. Within days, Otanian Iduwozi was transported to Wisconsin to face federal charges of conspiracy to commit money laundering. But what investigators discovered next, inside his encrypted messages and financial logs, would blow the case wide open, revealing just how deep the network ran. And when the court finally handed down its verdict, even the judge's words left the courtroom silent. In the days following his arrest, forensic experts from Homeland Security investigations combed through every byte of his seized devices. On his laptop, they found spreadsheets labeled clients and returns. Each client was a victim. Each return was the amount wired overseas after his cut. The messages told a darker story. Encrypted chats revealed coordination with scammers abroad, how to lure victims, which stock photos performed best, and even how to sound more American during video calls. They joked about collecting hearts for harvest. For the agents reading it, the cruelty was chilling. Meanwhile, back in Milwaukee, prosecutors built their case. They connected money trails, matched timestamps, and reached out to dozens of victims scattered across the U.S., from Texas to Maine, whose savings had vanished through the same accounts. Each new statement painted the same picture: a quiet man in Georgia managing an invisible empire of heartbreak. June 17, 2025. Federal Courthouse, Eastern District of Wisconsin. Chief U.S. District Judge Pamela Pepper took her seat as Otanian Iduozi stood before the bench in a pressed beige jumpsuit, hands clasped. He was no longer the confident student or online mastermind, just another defendant about to face his reckoning. Assistant U.S. Attorney Rebecca Tableson read aloud portions of the victim's statements. One woman described how she'd sold her husband's old truck to help her online fiancé. Another said she'd pawned her wedding ring. Many said the same thing. "I thought I was helping someone I loved." In the gallery, a hush fell over the room. Some victims wept softly. Others glared at the man who had turned affection into arithmetic. When it was his turn to speak, Iduozi's voice trembled. He said he'd come to America for education and opportunity, but got pulled into something bigger than myself. He apologized to the court, to his family, to anyone I hurt. But the judge wasn't convinced. Judge Pepper leaned forward. "You didn't just move money. You moved people's hope, their trust. You turned love into a weapon." Then she pronounced sentence, 42 months in federal prison, and upon completion, immediate removal from the United States. The gavel struck once. Silence, case closed. After sentencing, investigators shared something they hadn't revealed publicly before. Inside the encrypted files, they had discovered logs of other active chats, ongoing romance scams still operating overseas using the same scripts Iduozi had helped write. The network was bigger than one man. It was a machinery of deceit stretching across continents. Homeland Security used that data to alert Nigerian authorities and Interpol, sparking ongoing operations to dismantle related rings. Though those investigations remain classified, sources confirm several accomplices have since been identified. For U.S. victims, it was small comfort. But at least, as one agent put it, we stopped the bleeding. When news of the sentencing hit local Wisconsin media, something unexpected happened. Victims began reaching out to each other. A support group formed online, calling themselves the Heart Reclaimed Circle. They met virtually every week, sharing stories, grief, and lessons learned. Some wrote letters to lawmakers urging stricter cyber fraud penalties. Others volunteered with nonprofits teaching seniors how to spot online romance scams. Diane M., the retired nurse from Milwaukee who had first reached out to police, became a quiet advocate. She started giving talks at libraries and community centers. In one interview, she said, "If my story saves one person, then I didn't lose everything." Experts later dissected the case in webinars and academic papers. They explained how romance scams exploit three psychological levers: loneliness, trust, and hope. Iduozi never spoke directly to victims, but his role as the launderer still fed on those same emotions. He treated love as data, affection as currency. To him, every transaction was a simple equation: feelings, funds, profit. Dr. Elaine Porter, a cyber psychologist interviewed by BYTE Crimes, put it succinctly: romance scammers don't just steal money, they steal identity. They convince victims to rewrite their own stories until those stories serve the scam. It's the kind of crime that leaves scars deeper than financial loss. For Iduozi, prison life was quiet. He reportedly kept to himself, often reading business textbooks in the library. His family in Nigeria issued no public statement, though local media called the case a warning to those chasing easy wealth. After his 42-month term, he'll be handed to immigration authorities for deportation. The U.S. Attorney's Office confirmed that restitution is still being assessed, though few victims expect to recover what they lost. For the investigators, this case became a model used in training seminars to teach how digital breadcrumbs, even in encrypted systems, can still reveal the truth. Behind the headlines, this story is about more than crime and punishment. It's about vulnerability in the digital age, how love can be engineered, and how even the smartest people can fall prey when emotion overrides logic. Romance scams in the U.S. have cost victims over $1.3 billion in the past 3 years alone, according to the FTC. And for every arrest, there are hundreds of scammers still behind screens, typing the same words, "Good morning, my love." That's why stories like this matter, not to shame the victims, but to educate the next potential one. As the courtroom emptied that June afternoon, the judge's words lingered. You took advantage of people's need for connection. You treated love like a business deal, but you'll serve time. And those you hurt will rebuild. Outside, a few victims hugged, tears mixing with relief. Inside the holding cell, Idozi sat staring at the floor, wrists still cuffed. A guard later said he whispered one sentence before being led away. "I never meant to break their hearts." Maybe he believed it, maybe not. But the trail of pain he left behind will echo far longer than his prison term. And that is the story of Otanian Idozi, the student who turned affection into an enterprise and paid the price. Thank you for staying with us till the end of this chilling true story. If you learned something today, or if it moved you in any way, please like this video, comment your thoughts below, and subscribe to our channel. Because together, awareness is our best defense against digital deception. And remember, in the world of online love, sometimes the person typing "I love you" isn't who they claim to be.